Good afternoon to you. Mark out of HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for Monday, June 3rd, 2019. Let's start off today's discussion looking at the temperature anomaly pattern here for a good deal of the Western Hemisphere. This is the NOAA-NESDIS version. There's a couple of different methodologies. Today I'll show you the NOAA-NESDIS version. This is what I've used for years. And we see a couple of interesting things that we definitely need to keep track of. First, notice in the Atlantic Basin, most of the main development region is generally at or slightly above the long-term average, or anomalously warm, a little bit warmer than it should be. And that extends over through the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico, and a good deal of the Western Atlantic over here. Most of the North Atlantic, north of the equator here, running above the long-term average, generally speaking. Nothing alarmingly so that's good news. It was pretty warm this time in 2017 as an example, and you saw how that turned out. So we're not quite at those levels, but we're definitely warmer than this time last year. See, look at that. There's 2018, and here's this year. So we're definitely ahead of where we were just a year ago. And looking at the Pacific, a few areas of blue starting to show up here that I'm coloring over in green as the El Nino phenomenon starts to lose a little bit of its grip. It was never that strong to begin with, and I think most of the warmth that is relative to average warmer than it should be is going to be focused more to the central and western Pacific, if that. I mean, probably the central Pacific. I think a good deal of the Westpac way over in the western Pacific is actually pretty normal, right where it should be. And so that's a decent look at what's happening with the anomalies. If you compare to last year, overall the northern hemisphere seems to be a little bit warmer sea surface temperature wise than last year. I think that speaks for itself. But the main takeaway that there's nothing that is just extraordinarily warm or cold compared to average. This is a little interesting here, this warmth in the northern Gulf right up against the shelf there, as they say, the shelf water quite a bit warmer. Right off the east coast, northwest Atlantic, those are a couple of hot spots, if you will, that jump out as being quite a bit warmer than they should be. But it's just June 3rd, and it's not like it's the peak of the hurricane season. So we'll wait and see how this all plays out. Nothing else to do between now and August except wait and see. All right, so what's happening before we jump to the Atlantic? Let's just cruise around the eastern Pacific and central Pacific. Nothing going on here. Nothing in the central Pacific. I really like how the National Hurricane Center's website has changed and allows us to just kind of cruise thousands of miles of real estate here in very little time. And then we get over to the Gulf of Mexico, Bay of Campeche, and here's our area of disturbed weather. Invest area 91L, and if we mouse over it, still a 60% chance of development into a tropical cyclone, meaning a depression or a storm, and that's a pretty favorable area this time of year, so this is not surprising. We have had this Central American gyre trying to sort of close off over here and develop into something, but for whatever reason, some years you get that to develop. Like last year we had Alberto that developed from this westerly wind over here, easterly winds coming this way, and that tries to curl up in this region, the Central American gyre as we call it, CAG, people shorten it to that, and Alberto formed in this area and moved on up towards the panhandle of Florida, not far from where Michael, at the end of the season, from yet another Central American gyre developed at the front of the season and in the sort of the back of the season. With 91L, whether or not this develops, it's still going to bring a lot of rain to the western Gulf, eventually up into Texas, the northwestern Gulf, etc. The recon plane scheduled for today was canceled. It's just not that well organized. And I can show you this on satellite real quick. We'll take a look at the Gulf of Mexico visible loop from the GOES 16 high-resolution imagery. Fantastic tools that we have. And you can see it's very loosely organized overall down here. Not in a big hurry to get its act together. And that certainly is good news from this developing into a big wind event. You can also see, looking at this satellite picture, the broad overall turning of the clouds through here, which is general low pressure tucked away down there, but it's very broad, very spread out, and not consolidating very quickly. And we can see that on the 850 millibar vorticity. Let's choose a different color. How about violet? That's the area right there. A little bit more concentrated. Vorticity here shows us the energy in the atmosphere. And remember, in the tropics, we're looking to see, does it bundle? That could be like a title on Jeopardy. I don't remember the guy's name that's winning every day, but that could be a title. Does it bundle? And you could look at 91L for 800, Alex, and, you know, is it bundling? And the answer would be no, not yet, but it's trying. Something like that. Just trying to throw some humor into today's conversation while trying to be topically relevant, and yet I forget the guy's name that's doing so well. I remember Ken Jennings, who was the previous long-term winner. Anyway, back to the topic at hand here. I ought to grab the iPhone and just Google it. But you know what? I will admit that I don't remember the guy's name and leave it at that. The bottom line, my point that I was trying to make, yes, it's a little bit more round in its appearance. You can see that. In fact, let me zoom in on this just a little bit here. Ta-da. And, you know, you see there's definitely a little bit of energy down there trying to get together, but it's not doing so quickly. And again, it's a mystery. Honestly, there is no, well, this is why some develop and this is why others don't. You know, you could look at, say, well, climatology is part of it. Yeah, but it's still June 3rd. It is hurricane season. This isn't like April, you know, down in this region. And this area of the globe is warm. You know, the globe as a whole, then just focusing on the Bay of Campeche, water temperatures are warm enough. You have the disturbance there. You know, there's the energy down there. The shear is not too bad overall. And you can look at this nice tweet here from Stu Ostro. Look at the upper level anticyclone. You can clearly see, well, let me draw on it with white. That'll show up better. You can clearly see the upper level outflow, much better defined overall, and then the disturbance comes in there counterclockwise. See that? Let me take my telestration away. So why? Why won't it develop more? I don't know. It's just one of those things. That being said, there is, as you can see in this satellite picture, a lot of moisture associated with this system, and that is going to try to make its way generally towards the southern Texas coastline, you know, the Rio Grande Valley, northeast Mexico, and perhaps beyond. All right, and we can look at that on the GFS here. Let's go back to the first frame. This is the 12Z run from today. This is the, well, if I use white, you won't see it. This is the area we're looking at right here. That's the energy at the 850 millibar level of the atmosphere. The atmosphere made up of layers. And here's an analogy from a movie that and something in pop culture that I do remember, and that is Shrek, where they talk about onions have layers. Remember that? Well, the atmosphere has layers, and those layers, you know, you have the surface, and then you have the middle layers of the atmosphere on up to the stratosphere and beyond, all the way into the reaches of outer space, just beyond the Earth's sensible atmosphere. And at this particular level, 850 millibars, we're talking about roughly 5,000 feet up. And I like to look at the vorticity signature. What is the energy trying to do over time in the modeling? So if we put this into motion over the next 5 days, we'll speed it up a little bit. There it is right there, and I'll use yellow to highlight it. It goes on into South Texas by about day 3 or so, day 2 or 3. This is 5 days, so you're looking at 120 hours, and the loop will reset itself. So watch what happens. There's the energy right there. Never really gets its act together where it shows up as a more defined round area of wind, and spin in the atmosphere. Instead, that energy comes up loosely organized into South Texas. You can follow sort of the vorticity maximum right there, and then gets sort of caught up in all of this mess up here, where energy is coming in from the Pacific Ocean, the upper Midwest, etc., upper level energy in the atmosphere, mid-latitude systems across this area, draws all this moisture up, and that'll lead to an increase in rainfall across parts of the south and the lower part of the southern plains, okay? And that's a problem because they are flooding the Mississippi, flooding in flood stage since January. I got a great email today from a gentleman down in Louisiana, Michael, and really appreciate his updates and his insight on the backwater flooding that's been going on. And look at this also. Let me just pause the... We'll just stop it here. And where are we on the time? We're about 80 hours right there. Okay, so look at these wind barbs. That's what these guys are right through here. See how they flow generally out of the south overall? They're going around this large area of general high pressure. But that southerly flow coming up out of the Gulf does a couple of things. First of all, it advects or transports all of this tropical energy up into here, more moisture, precipitable water in the atmosphere. But those southerly winds, this is 5,000 feet, those are also down at the surface, literally down at the ocean surface, the Gulf of Mexico's surface. And so that southerly flow draining, trying to go against that draining of the Mississippi that comes through here and its tributaries as it empties into the Gulf, doesn't allow it to do so as efficiently. So you get this backup of water, backwater flooding of low-lying areas. And this update from Michael today in the Morgan City area was very concerning, that you have 91L and its energy, and we have to watch that very closely. But with it being hurricane season, this area all through here, especially down into New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and areas along the southern Delta region. You have the Mississippi Delta part up here in Mississippi. That's another geologic feature. But the Delta region down here along where the flow is into the Gulf, along the toe of Louisiana, and then back from there, this is a big problem. That even a tropical disturbance like 91L can create big-time problems. So if we get later on any kind of major system developing and coming up into this region or the western Gulf, and then it drifts over and starts raining along what we call the catchment basin, the area of the Mississippi basin that collects water, that's called a catchment basin, the region and its tributaries that feed into there, the Arkansas River, even the Ohio River, we could be looking at absolute unprecedented flooding that could lead to billions and billions and billions of dollars in damage and threat to life and property, more than we're looking at now. Not a lot of this is being made, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not being talked about as headlines in national media. It's being talked about, but flooding is so incessant and kind of quiet. It is a quiet disaster, right? Except for raging floodwaters, obviously, but not to make light of it at all, but it is. It's a quiet, hurricane comes roaring in, it's loud, and it makes headlines, 150 mile per hour winds or 90 mile per hour wind. I mean, look at Florence as a great example. It was coming at the Carolinas as a Category 4, and all heck broke loose, and it was just this giant, epic disaster coming, and then it weakened to a 1, and a lot of people said, oh, okay, it's just a 1, and what happened? This massive flood event that defined a generation in the Carolinas. Absolutely set the bar, erasing what we had with Matthew and Floyd and the 2015 event even. I won't say erase them, but it certainly eclipsed them. That's a better way to say it. And that flooding, right? It's just water, but it's very destructive. So I'm spending a lot of time talking about this because it is a big, big problem, and we need to watch this closely because, again, that energy right there shows up as just something to watch, and we labeled it as 91L. But as I do these updates through the next few days here, watch as this starts to translate north and what it could mean for rainfall for areas near where that flooding is going on today. All right? All right, so I'm waiting for Amazon to approve and publish my title. It's a process, and I'm still waiting. I submitted it a week ago today, and they say it takes 2 to 4 business days for it to be published, and it's not published yet. I sent them an email, hey, what's happening? I complimented them on the whole, you try to, kill them with kindness. I'm not complaining, but I did want to know what's taking so long. We got a lot of people anxious to see this. But also remember, this is available through PayPal on YouTube, and you can go to HurricaneTrack.com/2018 to order it. And a couple of dozen people have already done so, and I appreciate that. And the feedback about the documentary from some of those folks is just, I have to pinch myself. Like, wow, you got to remember you made this, Mark, and they're complimenting you. And I appreciate that. And I am the one that put it together. I will claim credit to that. Yes, I am the guy that put it all together on the computer, the producer, the director, the writer, but the rest of it, that it even happened in the first place, is an incredible team effort. And it took about 14 years from when we started this unmanned camera project right after Hurricane Charlie to make this all happen. So be patient, hang in there. It's coming to Amazon Video to rent or to purchase any day now. Any day now. I hit refresh and check on it. The 2017 version's on there for what it's worth. So, and that's available on Amazon Prime, included with Prime. The 2018 edition, I must monetize it because it is a way to help fund the future, and at least it costs half of what a DVD production would cost. So that's good, and you own it on your digital device instantly as soon as you rent it or purchase it. Eventually on Amazon, available immediately through PayPal at HurricaneTrack.com/2018. Also, real quick, I did an update today on Patreon this morning, and once again I realized, this Patreon thing, and I bragged about this the other day, I'm going to do it again probably a few times a week because I think it's awesome. It's a way to support what I'm doing, even for just $1 a month, up to $100 a month, anywhere in between, doesn't matter. You get different tiers and rewards for the different levels, sure. But, this is a great way to say, hey, look, you can help me out for just $1 a month, and I can serve you and do my job and actually make a living doing so. And that has changed over the years. From when I first started this 20-something years ago, and you had corporate sponsors and big contracts that I would get to produce hurricane awareness projects, to now it's much more 90% crowdfunding. All right, I work with the Weather Channel to license video to them. They're the exclusive media partner that I have. But the crowdfunding is every month, month after month, even in the off season, and it's growing more and more. But here's the thing that I was so, again, impressed about Patreon. WordPress, which is what I would use at HurricaneTrack.com, has become a little bit more clunky and difficult for me to use. They've changed their interface. It's just, and the way it taxes the website with all the WordPress stuff going on, when it gets real busy, I just said, I might just start forwarding HurricaneTrack.com, redirect it to my Patreon page, and just start doing a public post. I can make a post that's public. That way everybody can see it. And then when I do stuff that is for the patrons, the exclusive material, I can lock it down, a video or whatever, and serve both at the same time on the same platform. Because it becomes inefficient to write up something over at HurricaneTrack.com, write up something over at Patreon, and then put it all on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. Try to consolidate here. Work smart, not hard. And it's not a matter of being lazy. It's a matter of putting your creative power to work the best way possible. And honest to goodness, if I could ever meet the founders of Patreon, I would shake their hand and thank them for creating a way so that people who have said, I want to support you financially, and then I give them something other than just, hey, thanks for the money, go visit my website. It's all right here. You get alerted when I make an update. I can update from my iPhone anywhere I am through the Patreon app. And it even makes my app, Hurricane Impact. Do I really even need that? I mean, honestly, I hate to, and I'm being truthful here, full transparency. There are some things in my app that are very, very exclusive to that app that I cannot recreate in Patreon, yes. And it's just a one-time purchase, right? Patreon's every month, a subscription-based model. But boy, I just can't say enough about this. So if you want to support what I am doing for the long term, this is sustained supporting here, joining the modern age of crowdfunding, that's how you do it. Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. And there you go. That's me. That's the old me. The new me weighs about 55 pounds less. All right. We'll talk about that another day. So that's about it. Not a lot happening. We'll keep an eye on 91L. Again, my main concern is the rain. I do want to throw this out there. I saw Dr. Klotzbach tweeting that the globe as a whole, being hurricane intensity for tropical cyclones free so long, all the way here through June 3rd. It's been a while since the last typhoon in the Pacific. I can't remember his particulars. Sorry I didn't bring it up, but we're going a long way with things being pretty quiet. Let's put it that way. And you figure one basin or another will eventually take over. Also something to keep an eye on. That's usually how it works out. One area will take over. So will it be the Atlantic? Will it eventually be the Pacific? We'll see. Something to watch for the future. All right, I'll definitely be back tomorrow, probably in the morning, with an update on what's going on in the tropics there, specifically 91L. And we'll see if the Amazon video folks have granted my wish to get the video, the movie, the film, the documentary online so that you can check it out at Amazon. Here is hoping to that. Have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks for tuning in from your side of the screen. I greatly appreciate it. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. And whatever I do with that, or if I forward it to Patreon or what, we'll see. Get your feedback on that. It might be nice to see what you think. Should I just consolidate it all to one or not? Leave a comment. Let me know what you think, or email me. Times change. You never know. That's my long sign-off for the day. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.